Open source is important to Europe on several perspectives. I think that in terms of digital sovereignty, that when it's open source, it means that you move from the idea that you have to buy intellectual property from software vendors, and unfortunately for Europe, most software vendors are not European, or the most largest software vendors are not European. And with open source, you move the topic from buying software to maintaining the skills in people who will use and deploy and maintain and whatever you want them to do, open source projects for European users. And that's really important because we are not very good at selling software or building big software vendors, but we are very good in Europe in training people. We have a very good university system, etc. So building skills is what we know how to do that. We should get involved in open source because that's cool, and because they have a chance to work with the best developers worldwide. So that's also, getting crossing the border of your just own culture and work with people all around the world. That's really where you have a chance to collaborate with your peers and with the best developers on Earth, because a lot of very good, very talented developers, they are today involved in the open source communities. I think that, well, we are a very welcoming community. We have interesting projects. We have also very skilled people in our community. And we have a mix. We have the perfect mix, I would say, between community-driven open source and business-driven open source. Is that at the project level, we really want people to collaborate between developers, between peers, and to have this kind of self-governance of their projects. But we also want them in their job to be able to make business on top of what they do in open source. So that's where I think that our model is a bit special. That's really about what does it mean to open source governance. And open source governance is about deciding who can participate in the project, what are the rules of engagement, what are the rules of participation, how do you accept incoming contributions, how do you make sure that all the components used in an open source project use compatible licenses and don't create legal problems. So, and beyond that, at Eclipse, we build our open source governance on top of, let's say, 3 or 4 main principles, which are transparency. Everything in a project should be written on a public channel of the project. Openness, everybody from everywhere can participate in an Eclipse project. Meritocracy, a new developer has to prove its willingness and skills to participate before they get elected, potentially from being an external contributor to being a committer, and then hopefully being a leader of the project. So that's really the meritocracy. And all of that has one main goal, which is to implement vendor neutrality. I think that open source is a unique chance for Europe to gain leadership in the next generation of technologies. Because, as I said earlier, we don't really have the big software players in Europe. And when you think about IoT, edge computing, everything like that, we have lots of companies, and if if they start collaborating together in open source, then they have a chance to create the best platforms. And because open source is, one of the superpowers of open source is adoption. So thanks to the adoption superpower of open source, they can get those platforms used everywhere. And then that's, coming back from the current situation where European players are consuming open source that is sometimes done elsewhere, like in the US or in China, and moving the perspective from we consume open source to we create open source and we push that open source globally. And that's my dream. That's what I try to do with everything we do with my colleagues in Europe.